So, brand new manager, what should you be doing in the first 30 days? I shared my thoughts earlier this week. Well, it's time for me to bring in my very good friend and former partner, Dan Moore, author of Do More, Get More, current president of Vista Dash. He is truly, in my mind, one of my favorite people, but also he's really one of the best leaders of teams and builders of teams I know. So he's going to share his thoughts on what you should be doing in your first 30 days as a new manager. So let's dive in. I can't wait to hear him. Hope you enjoy it. Hi, and welcome back to another episode of You're in Charge. Now what? I'm your host, Glenn Pasch. And as always, the goal of this channel is to help those of you who now find yourself in charge of a team, a division, or even a business, build the skills necessary to lead high-performing teams. Each week, I'm going to focus on one topic. I'm going to share my thoughts. I'm also going to interview some of my friends in the industry to hear their strategies as well, so that we give you some tools, tips, strategies, so that you can build consistent results. So let's get into today's topic, and I want to introduce my very, very dear friend, Dan Moore, president of Vista Dash. How are you, sir?
Fantastic. Thanks for having me on.
Listen, this is great. So, you're one of the first few people, the first couple people who I'm interviewing for this show are really the people who have pushed me over the last, I guess it's a couple years now, to finally get this done. And so I just wanted, before we even got in, I just wanted to tell you I appreciate all your support, your push, your when are we going to get this done type of stuff. Without that support, without that sort of push, we wouldn't be doing this. So before anything, I just want to let you know I appreciate you and thank you very much for all that.
Oh, thanks, man. So we're here for each other. That's what the name of the game is.
So
we're going to talk about that too, right? I mean, that's the whole point of leadership.
Yes. See, yes. Do more. See, get more, do more, right? Yeah. So this is Dan's book. You should go to Amazon and get it. It is truly like no BS, because I would tell my friends if their book was, and it was really impactful, like really made me think about a lot of things. There's even, as he said, there's a chapter written directly for me, and it had a lot to do with this, which was stop talking and please just get doing. So that's really one of the reasons why I have Dan on today. But before we get started, I just wanted you, Dan, just take, a short little time, tell people who you are and what you do, and we'll get into it.
Well, most importantly, father to three amazing little girls, and husband to my amazing wife, and president of Vista Dash, and obviously author of the book Do More, Get More. Really, my kind of what I'm all about is I've been in the car business for quite some time. I think I started selling cars at 19, but then kind of fell into the marketing aspect of the business, and then got fascinated with the software side,
right?
Which has probably led to my relationship with you and your brother for the better part of over a decade now, which is kind of crazy. It seems like all of our hair has gotten lighter. When I look back at all the pictures of us, like over a decade, it was like our hair was black.
Yeah. We've been doing with all of this lockdown, and that's why I'm actually up here. I got booted upstairs today to do this interview. But yeah, going through as you're locked down, you can go around the house and you start seeing old pictures, and I'm going, oh, not so much weight, thin.
So it's positive, right? I mean, we've all somehow managed to get thinner, which is great.
Yeah, but the hair.
But it kind of matches the hair going thinner and lighter.
Oh, it's crazy. So, what I wanted to talk about today with you, because as you just mentioned, we worked together for a few years. You helped really take Vista Dash as a product beyond what, we thought it could be. And now you're off with, it did get bought, and now you're off with them. But what I've always been really impressed by, and actually when you were working with us, I learned so much from you. I heard a great quote today where someone said, the gentleman, Jack Dorsey from Twitter, had a conversation with Elon Musk and basically said, if you were running Twitter, what would you do? Like, I always thought that's a really great thing to do, where you surround yourself with other people who are better than you in certain things, or you count as peers you're not intimidated by. And you just brought a lot to not just the company but to me, watching how you maneuver. And so what I wanted to talk to you about, because I think you've done it a few times and I've watched you personally do it, is coming in either into a company, right? So if you're going to take over in this case, you took over basically a division, and you have teams in there, or even if you're taking over a team or a project, there's two ways you get there. You're coming in from the outside, or you're promoted from within. But really, what that to me is secondary. What I really want to talk to you about was what am I'm the person who's taking it over. What should I be doing in those first 30 days to make sure I put myself on the right path?
Yeah, I mean, some of it, there's so many different aspects to what is going to create the maneuverability, right? And from my standpoint, generally when I come in, is I first kind of understand where I guess if you will, where the limits are going to show themselves. Meaning, a lot of times you hear that, hey, you have free reign to go do what you want. Well, you put the gas pedal down, and then suddenly you find out you don't have that. So
Right.
it's really seeking to understand what is the expectation, because we all answer to somebody. You have your own company and you're the boss. You answer to somebody. It could be the clients, it could be investors.
Right.
We're always owned to some extent. So I always seek out, like, what's the expectation? And if it's very broad, then I start to kind of chip away at it. Not maybe all in the same sitting, because
Right.
again, it just leads to sometimes frustration and aggravation of like, well, why did I hire you if you can ask me 20 million questions? Like, go do what I hired you to do.
Well, let me just sorry to interrupt you on that. So what you're saying is that you coming in, you should be scheduling time with whoever. I always say that no matter, to your point, even if you're an owner, you're always on someone's team, right?
Correct.
So you're part of someone's team. So even if you're the owner, maybe you have a group of people to hold you accountable, or clients, whatever. But in your case, you're saying, I'm in a team. I'm on someone else's team now, so I need to schedule time with that person. So what exactly? So in that meeting, what type of questions would you be asking? Because you say, what reign do I have? Like, a couple of things that you would ask.
Yeah. So some things I ask is like, how do you like to be communicated with? I seek to understand like what their, and this is gonna sound weird, but attention span, attention to detail, things of that nature. Because I got to figure out what rub am I going to cause them, right? Because I operate differently. As you know, we joke about it all the time. You're like, I am very unorthodox in how I approach things, so people get a little bit weird sometimes.
Okay.
So I have to clarify and understand so that I can bridge that gap, so it doesn't seem like I'm running roughshod on everything, or as I've been told in my career, like, hey, you just keep pulling things out of your rear end, and it's like, no, they're well thought and intentional. I'm executing just way further downstream.
So in this case, what you're saying is, if I was reporting to you, so you're saying I should be sitting down with you and say, okay, how do you want me to communicate results to you? How often?
Correct.
What format?
Correct.
How detailed? Right? Because
Correct.
your point is, if your attention span is this, so give me a high bullet point thing, and I present a 25-page PowerPoint. Like,
you just ships passing in the night. Like,
right.
That's the whole point. And sometimes it takes some discovery, because you'll get just give it to me this way. That's maybe not exactly how they perceive, because how you communicate's got a different style. So Sometimes it's like, in that case, I would provide, a bullet summary with my kind of novel if I needed some backup information, just so I hit their need, because that's the first line they want. But if there's that question that pops up, there's the more detail down below, right? So there's that aspect. And again, sometimes you don't know, what shots are. So I always say, I'm going to communicate. I can get more done like this and move through a meeting faster, or move through some challenges faster. But in some cases, I like the documentation out there, because it does give me a leg to kind of come back on and say, well, hold on a second. We talked about this.
Right.
I presented the execution path. You were good with it. And sometimes you got to, and it's okay. I think sometimes as a new leader, you might feel intimidated and backpedal a little bit, or give up on the thought process you have. And what I would tell any new leader is this: if you're taking a job and you're taking this role of leadership, always kind of one thing that kind of shifted through me through my career was I would rather be fired because of me versus being fired because I did what I was asked to do. And
So
there's a big difference
go
there.
explain
Yeah,
that a little.
yeah. So in some cases, let's say like, I told you, Glenn, like, hey, you're going to hit this objective, right? I want you to hit this objective, and this is how I want you to do it.
Right.
And you go back and you're like, there's no way I'm going to hit that number following that plan. I've got to make an adjustment. If you follow that plan and you know it's going to fail, then you're the one that's going to take the bullet.
Right.
If you know there's a better way and you know that it can get the result or greater then go run through the wall.
Do you
and sometimes that's
should they go back and say to them, or just go insert again? Every situation's different.
Every situation's different. 9 times out of 10, I've just gone with it. Like right. If I'm going to I've always just had the mentality, if I'm going to pick up my box and go out the door I came in, it's going to be on my own accord, because I'm not going to get, kicked out because I followed something who dang well wasn't going to work.
Right.
But I'm going to be the fall guy because I'm the one carrying out the action.
I gotcha. All right. So going on that, so we've talked to our supervisor, we've gotten our, sort of talking to them, marching orders or framework of what our expectations are. And we say, we understand what authority we have over the team, so to speak, of like what control can I change things? And I think that's a big point that a lot of people don't ask, is how much authority do I have to change? Or on the flip side, they get offended if the manager above them says, no, you got to run everything by me, instead of understanding that maybe it's just, I do it. I'm not sure. I'll ask you your opinion is, no matter who comes on, I want them to run it through our system, and then I'll let them go. Once you prove that you can do it, go, please, Godspeed. I don't need you to check in with me, but
it doesn't hurt to just check in or set the stage. Like, hey, based on my evaluation, here's a couple moves I'd like to make, especially if it's coming to like removing staff, changing a process. It never, if nothing else, it doesn't hurt in your weekly update just to provide like, hey, I noticed this inefficiency here, so I'm replacing it here. This will be the predicted outcome I'm looking for. Or, right. Hey, these 2 people are underperformers. Are you aware? Or, and I've even said things like, in some businesses, right, it's family, it's friends, it's somebody, there's relationships. So I even say, even in that meeting, hey, listen, if I come in and make any staff changes, is there anybody on this list that is off limits?
Right.
Yes or no? Because you've got to figure out your playing field, and even people say, oh, I'm an outside the box thinker or whatever. Well, sometimes you can be all the outside the box thinker you want. You're in a box, and you got to figure out inside that box how to make it all work. You can't go outside the box.
So in those, so again, going back to these first 30 days, so we've had that, we sort of got this initiative. Once let's think of it as turning our heads 2 ways, right? One way, we've talked to our supervisors, we got our marching orders, and we figured out our box. And I like that. Like, you may not think there's a box, but there are boundaries around what I can do or can't do. This way I can go pretty far. This one I can't, right? Now I'm pivoting and I'm looking back, and now I'm going, okay, now I got my team in front of me, and I'm just either, I know them because I was part of them, right? Promoted from within, or I don't know them. Either way, what am I doing in those first, assuming that it's not we're going down in flames and we got to solve the problem, we got to hack and cut and do whatever, right?
But even if, right, like I would tell you this, I approach every scenario, whether the house is on fire or whether it's totally fine, is understanding who the people are, interviewing everybody. And not, when I say interview, it's not like sit down and let me ask you star questions and you apply for your job.
Right.
Interviewing is tell me what's working, tell me what's not working. If you were in my seat, what's the first thing you would do?
Right.
Because it starts to tell me about people and how they're thinking. Do I have someone that's like been there and that has the passion and drive to see the company push forward? Do I have someone that's just burned out, attitude's not right. Like, what are the pieces by asking that question? Because people are pretty straightforward and honest in those situations. The other piece is I try to, if I have layers of management, I try to work above and below so I can surface up what's going on. Because in a lot, especially in different environments, middle management can be a heavy roadblock or filter, so you
Right.
don't always get kind of that really good read that you need as you would to digging deeper and getting into the root. So it's really about just getting to know people, and I'm not worried about whether or not right that moment you can do the job. I'm worried about attitude. I can teach anybody how to perform in the job and do the right things and lead a team,
Right.
manage a team, execute on a process. What I can't do is correct your attitude.
So to that point, I want to focus on one or two of those things that you just said, because I think I don't want people who are listening to miss this. Is that when you're asking people what's going on, like what do you think is working, what do you think is not, what we're looking for, at least what I would think we'd be asking for, is what people are doing, like actions. I don't want to hear emotions. Well, I didn't like this, or I didn't like that, or they. You're right. Emotions can get skewed versus, well, Dan used to have meetings. When you start hearing the words, well, we used to do this, and
Right.
then they stopped doing this, or we were told to do this, or every day something. Right. That I'm trying to figure out the action. So I think that's number
I
one.
want to hear both though. So my I want to hear emotion, because emotion I can ask the question to get to logic. The
Okay.
emotion helps me understand where you are.
Meaning
Meaning,
if you're a blamer, or you're
or you're in the wrong job.
true.
I mean,
Okay.
here's a fundamental thing that I think a lot of leaders, this is like leadership miss all the time. We think that we hire someone a job, then that is their sole purpose in life. And we forget the fact that the job can outgrow the person and the person can outgrow the job. And we never remove the cheese. We just simply either fire them or,
Correct.
manage them out or whatever the case may be, instead of going, wait a minute, they started here, but this isn't the end for them. This is the end of this. Is there something we can pivot them over to that we would see a rebirth and an acceleration? And that's what I'm looking for in that first 30 days. Do I have people in the right seat? How long have they been there? Are they burned out? Do they need some refocus? Do they need a new challenge? Like, what's going on? And when I ask that question, the emotion is that raw emotion I'm looking for, because it tells me quickly, okay, I've got to watch you, because
Right.
you're definitely like at a point, or oh wow, you are so fresh and so like lively and just want to like go. I need to feed you more.
Right.
Figure out
Right.
where
Okay.
to take you.
I think that's great. That's a great point, because I agree with you. When people come in, a lot of times they're either accepting labels that were previously given to them by the supervisor, because
Correct.
again, that supervisor may not have been in the day to day, so their filter down to the team was through that middle manager, who is either got promoted to something else or great, or they're no longer there. So that's their gauge. And if you just accept that, if you just take that information and just go, okay, well, that's what it is, and go without doing your own research, I think to your point is, I think that's where you get into a lot of problems of never really connecting with your team and not really understanding. Like you were saying, I think the one thing is the fact that you're in the wrong seat. I think that's really, really
Yeah, I mean, you watch me move a lot of people around at Vista.
right.
So that you just got to be aware. The other piece is that as a new leader coming into the role, there's a couple pieces that you have to be clear on. Is you're going to give the rally cry and the speech, and the unfortunate part is those are just words.
Right.
Real leadership is action. So the first 30 days are challenging, because as a leader, you want to sit there and rally the troop, and you want to get that forward motion. You're just full of that newness because you're on your honeymoon phase of this new job, this new role, this new whatever. Sometimes you got to self-check yourself and understand, a lot of times I've even led with, hey, what I'm going to say today is to give you some framework. I'm not trying to sell you anything. I'm not trying to do anything. What I'm going to ask you for is the next 30 days, allow my actions to back my words. So I'm going to give you the framework,
Right.
but allow my actions. And if they don't match, I'm giving you permission to call me out.
Okay. Well, how often that I love that. I love that. How often in your time you're on the team, right?
Yep.
You're in the reverse seat. You've seen people come in. You've been on teams for a long time too. How often have you ever seen that really happen?
Which side? The actions meet the words, or just the fact
They
that
even
someone
have that
sets a statement?
conversation with, well,
No, very few have that conversation. And that's the fundamental problem is that because majority of the time leaders, they're never taught this one key piece. And it's a fundamental miss, I believe, is that words are cheap. And if your words don't match, you're losing credibility day in and day out.
sure.
You're losing that touch of someone actually feeling comfortable enough to come in and have a conversation with you. Or, like one thing that I do that is still sometimes a challenge is I tell the team all the time, we have a challenge culture, meaning you can respectfully challenge anybody at any given time, myself included.
Right.
I don't care that my title says president. I am a human being. I'm in the shoulder to shoulder with you. And if you disagree with me, let me know. Because at the end of the day, and I tell people, I'm not always going to have the right answer.
I think, and what I'm hearing today with this conversation, what I'm enjoying about it, and I hope the audience, if you do find value, again, click subscribe button and, the notification so you get these types. And that's the point of this, is that what Dan's talking about here is the misses. And if you're new to management, or even if you experience an experienced manager, think about yourselves. How many times when you were in the chair as a team member and someone came in as a new leader, how many people came and sat down with you and asked your opinion about, well, what was going on? Or did they just come in and they're going to be, put on the Superman cape and they're going to come in and they're going to be the hero, or I'm going to prove to the person who hired me that I'm the right choice. So again, what I like to summarize as we're going through this is that, Dan's talked about coming in the first 30 days, making sure you're sitting with your supervisors, asking what your limitations are or what your authority is. And now when we're turning to the team, we're going to sit with each of them to talk to them about what they felt was working, why I want to keep that going. If it's working for people, let's keep it going. If it wasn't, great, gather all that information to see, and then also suss out the team in those first 30 days to make sure that you have the people in the right place. Do I have people who are burnt out? Do I have people who maybe I keep my eye on and going, wait a minute, I think this person could do more, but they've tamped it down because they've just given up, because maybe they've raised their hand multiple times to take on new responsibilities, but the previous supervisor said, no, no, and they're discouraged, and you have a diamond in the rough here, right? So I think there's a lot of things, but again, these couple little tidbits here, I don't want to just in the speed of conversation to miss of having that conversation. I agree with you. I think that's a huge linchpin for success. I mean, that being able to really suss out in those first 30 days what's going on allows you, or else you could just put your head down and based on, as I said, supervisor's impression or what you think is going on. And, 30 days, you're way off course. You've lost complete faith in the team. You're never going to get them back. And now you're going, uh-oh, I'm in over my head, or I got to leave. And that's just been
1,000%.
time.
And that's it too. And I say these things. It's like I'm talking from experience. I had all these misses. So those that are watching, like, oh, hey, it must be nice to just, that's just so easy. Like, no, it's taken several, probably a couple decades to get it all tuned in. And hopefully this just saves you time, because again, you're coming in. If you want to be a manager, then just manage people. If you want to be a leader, that's where these other pieces, open challenge culture, shoulder to shoulder mentality. As I tell the team, like, my sole purpose as a leader is to clear the runway. That is your job as a leader, is to clear the runway. And what I mean by that is if you want the team to perform, you need to remove all of the BS on the runway. So you've got to manage all the negative communications or the business, just weight of the business stuff coming in, the busy work. I try to push and take that on myself to get rid of all of the noise, busy work, got a meeting, got a minute, got a this. I try to clear all that out of the way so the team can focus on the mission. And when you start doing that, I mean, the plane just always gets off the ground. But
I think that truly is one of the biggest lessons or things I learned from you, and it just stuck in my head. We were having a conversation about that at one time, and you said your job as a leader is to remove obstacles, right? That's your job, right? Clearing runway, getting it, your head's above everything, right? So if we use the analogies, I had a teacher one time who used the analogy of, an army. Someone's at the top on the hill going left, right, but you're down in the weeds just ducking underneath. So your team's just got head down, worried about their tasks. You have to go, oh, that's blocking them, or that's coming down the road. That's what they hired you to do. They didn't hire you to do their job for them. Your job is to watch processes, what's blocking our results, what's working, so we can double down on that. And so again, it's a combination of where are we going. Mike Cirillo said it in the previous episode. Like, your job is to understand where the mission is, right? Where are we going? And then strategies, sort of the direction, and then tactics. He goes, too many managers get so tied up in tactics, they forget where they're going, or they forget that their job is really to be doing the strategy of saying, this is, the processes are working, the people are in the right seats, and they're getting the right feedback and training, they're getting the right encouragement, and you are sort of like Captain America with the shield, blocking out all the distractions from them.
all
Like,
distractions.
exactly. And
You can have leadership above you that sends communications that maybe aren't really well communicated. And
correct.
so it's like, hey, just send those to me. I'll take care of it, and then you disseminate it. Great example is COVID right now. I mean, leadership is with so much that's going on and so much of the anxiety created through this pandemic. Quickly switching to like weekly meetings every week, full team, like the whole company. Hey, you're hearing from me. This is what I know. And I don't know. I do know. Just being honest, transparent. This is where we're at. These are the decisions that we have to make. This is what it's looking like as we head into the following month, the following week, or as we've had to make adjustments on staff and stuff. Hey, take a deep breath. Yes, the workload's tripled and doubled or whatever, but here's how we're going to do it: one foot in front of the other, shoulder to shoulder. Like, you have to be the one that's stable, because that's all eyes go to leaders in a crisis. In don't mind my Roomba going here.
That was see, this is live. This is real.
This is the real deal. Welcome to my house. It's like chaos. I got the vacuum going, and it's like,
great.
Yeah. So yeah, it's one of those things where you're basically exposed at every angle. You've got upper leadership looking at you and at what you're doing, how you're performing, how you're communicating. You've got the team looking up to you. Where are we going? Put me in. What do I do? And at the same point in time, you've got to be ahead of the game and understand, I'm noticing Glenn's getting a little burned out. I'm noticing, this is happening, or, I understand the stress of this situation, because take COVID again, back to that for a second. You have people working from home. Now, luckily, this has been kind of a remote home anything, but the added stress on top of it, now the kids are home.
Right.
Now the spouse is home, and you've got to balance responsibilities that you didn't have before. And suddenly that amounting pressure, and no one's giving relief, it's on you as a leader to sit down and say, hey, Glenn, I can see that you're really stressed right now. Let's talk about it.
Exactly.
What can I take off your plate to help you?
Or just even talk to them. I think
just even be like a therapist. I mean, honestly, leadership comes in many forms.
Yes.
And sometimes you just got to be that ear that just sits there and says, yep, I've been there.
Yep. Yep. I did that yesterday. I was sitting in and listening in on some of the calls from our report calls with a client. And I called up the people afterwards and I complimented them. I gave them some feedback and said, here's, a little training. And they were like, thank you. That was great. I appreciate that. So I think, and it's interesting, I wrote something a couple weeks ago about what are we going to bring forward from COVID? And I think to your point is, I think because of remote, leaders have had to work extra hard in over communicating with their team.
Yes.
And I hope they retain that value moving forward. But All of this stuff that we're talking about, these are things that nobody teaches. Like you
No.
said, it's taken years to figure it out. It's the reason why I decided finally to get my head to just go, okay, because we've been talking about this. We do this with our team, and we both sat over dinner multiple times saying, we see tons of people thrown into situations and they're drowning a little bit. They're figuring it out. And that's just a waste of everyone's time instead of saying, well, how can we help them? And that's what the point of this channel is to give them tips to say, even out of this, if people can just remember to get clarity from their supervisors going into even a project. What exactly should the project look like? How often do we report? Well, how do I keep you up to date? Like, that's just going to save time versus yes, sir, yes, ma'am, and off you go, and then you miss. And then working with your team.
And a yes man always misses, because you're getting a mission based on what is perceived.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of times it's like I tell my team when they're digging into problems, right? Like, if you're trying to solve something, are you literally just trying to pull the weed at the surface, or do you want to ask a few more questions to dig deep into the soil to find that root so the weed doesn't come back?
Right.
We generally solve
I think
a problem.
I think a lot of managers do that. They're just solving one because either they don't have the skill to find the root, or they don't think they have the time to go find the root, or part of it is they haven't invested in those first 30, 60, 90 days of building a structure of taking the time to identify what they have in the first place, so that then I can build on it in the next 30 days and 90 days and 120 days versus I'm already down the runway 120 days and I didn't realize I had half of these problems, or I've compounded the problems because I haven't had these skills, these tips that no one ever told me, right? No one ever told me to sit down with my team. No one ever told me my job is to remove obstacles. No one ever told me I have to remember to always report up, right? There are simple things that because we've been doing this for a while, we now know it's part of our checklist. It's the way we approach. And I thought something that you said that I want to just touch on, for the viewer to remember. You say, I approach everything the same way. Like, that's key. When you have a process for yourself or a checklist to say, when I take over something, take over a project, take over a team, take over a business, here's how I approach it in the first 30 days. It doesn't matter. That gives you a comfort level of saying, this is how I'm going to build my own process to put myself in a position to be successful. And so again, I'm hoping a lot of these tips out of these videos, these conversation and comments below. As always, put your comments in the below. If you like what you're hearing or you have a question, we'll answer it for you. I think that's what I'm hoping they take away from it, that they go, aha, even if you've been experienced going, I didn't do that. And really one of the best things is it's never too late. If you never did it, if you never had that conversation with your team, whatever day you see this, figure out in the next week the plan to have a conversation and just ask, how do you think we're doing? What could I do better? Where am I causing you frustration? It will just elevate your team really, really quickly and gain that connection with your team.
1,000%. I think the biggest piece is too, just you're never going to stop learning unless you just want to quit. And leadership is a constant learn because there's so much psychology involved in it. You're dealing with people.
Yeah.
So you can't run from emotion. You can't run from different views, and your way isn't always the right way. So how I communicate, that's great. That's how I communicate. If I want to reach my team, I need to understand how each one receives and how they send. Now, right. I know some leaders say, this is my box and this is how you will talk to me and this is what you will do. And I'm like, okay, fine, good for you. I don't subscribe to it because I want to get the most out of people. Yeah, it's just not going to go. I mean, I'm well trained in it because that's the majority. So, when I have to communicate, hey, I try and figure out the path. I don't always get it right, but I don't think about how I want to communicate it. I'm constantly looking for, how do I get the message received?
Right. And there it is.
And
That's
sometimes
great.
it's not even me saying it.
That's a great tool for your toolbox, folks. Throw that one right there. It's as we said in the very wherever you're in the episodes here, the very first episode, when you decide that you are going to be a leader, the very first thing you have to remember, it's no longer about you. It's about the team. So message, whatever it looks like inside of your head, if it doesn't click in his head and the picture in your head, if it doesn't match the picture in his head over your Dan's head, it's not working. As great as you think you are, unless they receive that directive, they understand the directive, they know how to execute on the directive, and they know you're going to be there, doesn't really matter, does it? It doesn't. And so it's all about, my job as a leader is to make sure everyone understands their role, where we're going, what they need to do, and you're in the trenches with them. And like you said, today I got to be a therapist. Tomorrow I have to make a few phone calls to help somebody with a personal problem that maybe I can help with, or I have to go fend off some other manager that did whatever it is. I have to move, and that's your job, so that then your team can focus on their job.
You have to be a good communicator too, because there's another piece to this fun little toolbox leadership, is that when you say something, it can be taken as matter of fact.
Right.
So you have to be very clear and clarify, especially if you're saying, hey, be great if this, whatever this might be, because I've done that in my time, and I'm like, why are you guys working on this? And they're like, well, because Dan, you said in this meeting, it'd be great if it this. And I said, well, it would be great. I didn't say go do it. So I'm always overcautious and careful in two simple facts. I'll say, hey, to ensure that my message is coming across, and I'll even tell team members, like, hey, I just want to make sure I'm communicating
right
in a way that you're receiving. Can you tell me what I just said, or
right.
what that email meant to you, or what you just took away from this meeting? And I'll do it as a spot check. I'm not going to go to every single employee, but I'm going to ask a couple of questions, because I'm going to be like, am I communicating? Because
Exactly.
I always think I'm saying everything great in here. Like, I mean, every time my mouth open, it's like gold.
Right.
That's not how everybody else is receiving it. It's more like, right, I think he just threw up. And that's how they're receiving it.
Right. And that's a good thing, to have a couple people on your team that will be able to come in and tell you, hey, you're way off base, or that bombed, right? You need to have that as well. So
you've got to have honesty in your people.
All right. So I got to have you on multiple times, because we could just be here for hours chatting away. So I'm going.
One of my favorite topics, man. You know that.
I know. That's why we're doing it. So I ask, so just again, folks, to summarize again, some of the things that Dan was talking about: supervisors, talking to them, making sure you understand what their expectations are, timeline, what feedback they need, in what format. So that's a great piece there. The other piece is, when you're with your team, talking to them, understanding what they think was working or not working, and then through your first 30 days, keep your eyes open. Watch how people are moving, and more importantly, make sure your actions are matching your words. In order, that's those first 30 days. That's what's going to help create the honesty that Dan was talking about, that someone's going to be willing to come up and talk to you if they think that, one, you're not going to be offended, and number two, you take their feedback consciously, and it's important to you as a leader to hear from your team. So at the end of every episode, I ask one question. And the question is, new person, brand spanking, just took over a team. And they're sitting in front of you and they're saying, give me one piece of advice. What's the one thing that's going to help me? One thing. Now, it could be something from you, something someone told you, but what's the one thing? They said, what's the most important thing that I need to do as a leader to take my team to be successful? What would that one thing that you would tell them to do?
One thing I would say, and I would just take this whichever way you want to take it, is approach everything with, I fear regret more than I fear failure. And what I mean by that is that there is no right, wrong, or it's like being a parent. Leadership's like being a parent. There's no manual.
Right.
And sometimes we fear failure. And as a leader, it's just really not an option. You're going to fail, period. And if you kind of put that to the side and just embrace the fact of, hey, I'm willing to fail because I don't want the regret of not trying.
Right.
You are going to grow exponentially. You're going to grow your team, you're going to grow yourself, and you're going to grow the business. It's just a fact.
That is awesome, and I totally agree. I think failure is it's what you learn from that. It's bad if you're repeating the same thing, but yes, it's the way we all, as parents.
It's how we learn.
Well, exactly. If you look at kids, that's how they learn to walk. They fell on their face 87 billion times until they could stand up. So it's the exact same thing. So we need to afford ourselves to understand that failure is a good thing. Repeated failure at the same thing, maybe not so good. For failure,
1,000%.
exactly. We have to know what's working. It's just one less thing that we have to worry about because we already know it doesn't work. So, all right. Well, thank you, my friend. Always great. This is great. So again, everyone here, if you found value, and if you didn't, you got to go back and listen again. Click the subscribe button, hit the notification little bell there so you stay updated when we post new ones. Every Tuesday and Thursday, new episodes are going to be coming out. As always, in the comments, tell us what you liked, what you didn't like. If there's a question you need answered, we will answer it. Maybe there's a new topic for a new video. I'll bring Dan back. Definitely bring Dan back because as I said, we could.
Hey, some people might say, no, not that guy.
Nah, correct. So again, I thank you all so much for watching this. Please share it out with your networks because again, there's a lot of people, as we said, who are in this situation who could use this information. So I thank you for sharing. And as always, as I end it, you're in charge, but now you have a few new tools to help you be more successful. Thanks so much. Thank you, Dan. Talk to you soon.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right.